धीमहि यो यो नमः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नमः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। सच्चिदानन्ददायिनी ब्रह्मानन्दरूपिणी भवभयहारिणी श्री शारदमारक्षिणी। सच्चिदानन्ददायिनी ब्रह्मानन्दरूपिणी भवभयहारिणी श्री शारदमारक्षिणी। सच्चिदानन्ददायिनी ब्रह्मानन्दरूपिणी भवभयहारिणी श्री शारदमारक्षिणी। सच्चिदानन्ददायिनी ब्रह्मानन्दरूपिणी भवभयहारिणी भगवान की जय।
राम हरे रघु राम हरे, राम हरे रघु राम हरे, राम हरे रघु राम हरे, राम हरे रघु राम हरे। श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम, श्री राम जय राम 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 राम, श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम, श्री राम जय राम 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 राम। राम हरे रघु राम हरे, राम हरे रघु राम हरे, रघुपति राघव राजा राम, पतित पावन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम, पतित पावन सीताराम। राम हरे रघु राम हरे, राम हरे रघु राम हरे। जय रघुनंदन जय सिया राम, जय रघुनंदन राम राम राम। जय रघुनंदन जय सिया राम, जय रघुनंदन राम राम राम। राम हरे रघु राम हरे, राम हरे रघु राम हरे। भगवान श्री राम कृष्ण जय जय राम, भगवान श्री राम कृष्ण राम राम राम। भगवान श्री राम कृष्ण जय जय राम, भगवान श्री राम कृष्ण राम राम राम। राम हरे रघु राम हरे, राम हरे रघु राम हरे, राम हरे रघु राम हरे, राम हरे रघु राम हरे। श्री राम जय जय राम, श्री राम जय राम 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 राम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम, पतित पावन सीताराम। राम हरे रघु राम हरे, राम हरे रघु राम हरे। जय रघुनंदन जय सिया राम, जय रघुनंदन राम राम राम। भगवान श्री राम कृष्ण जय जय राम, भगवान श्री राम कृष्ण राम राम राम। भगवान श्री राम कृष्ण जय जय राम, भगवान श्री राम कृष्ण राम राम राम। भगवान श्री राम कृष्ण जय जय राम, भगवान श्री राम कृष्ण राम राम राम। राम हरे रघु राम हरे, राम हरे रघु राम हरे। ओम श्री राम कृष्ण भगवान की जय।
वृंदावनमे गोविंदा, वेणुगोपाला कमलकना। वृंदावनमे गोविंदा, वेणुगोपाला कमलकना। पीताम्बरधर नंद कुमारा, यमुना विहार वासुदेवाय पीताम्बरधर नंद कुमार यमुना विहार वासुदेवाय गिरिधर कृष्ण नंदन गोपाल पद्मनाभ में परम दयाल गिरिधर कृष्ण नंदन गोपाल पद्मनाभ में परम दयाल परमात्मा हरि नारायण मधुरा मुरली गोपाला परमात्मा हरि नारायण मधुरा मुरली गोपाला वृंदावन में गोविंदा वेणुगोपाला कमल कना वृंदावन में गोविंदा वेणुगोपाला कमल कना पीताम्बरधर नंद कुमारा यमुना विहार वासुदेवाय पीताम्बरधर नंद कुमारा यमुना विहार वासुदेवाय गिरिधर कृष्ण नंदन गोपाल पद्मनाभ में परम दयाल गिरिधर कृष्ण नंदन गोपाल पद्मनाभ में परम दयाल परमात्मा हरि नारायण मधुरा मुरली गोपाला परमात्मा हरि नारायण मधुरा मुरली गोपाला वृंदावन में गोविंदा वेणुगोपाला कमल कना
ओम श्री राम कृष्ण भगवान की जय। ओम आशा पूरी गर्बो गाय हये हर खनमाय जगमग ज्योति जले छे माना चोखમાં ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં
આશા પૂરી ગરબો ગાય હરે હરે કનમાય જગમગ જ્યોતિ જલે છે માના ચોખમાં ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં
આશા પૂરી ગરબો ગાય હૈયે હર ખનમાય જગમગ જ્યોતિ જલે છે માના ચોખમાં ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં
આશા પૂરી ગરબો ગાય હરે હરે કનમાય જગમગ જ્યોતિ જલે છે માના ચોખમાં ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં
આકાશેથી માતા આવી સૌ દેવોના મન ભાવી
આકાશેથી માતા આવી સૌ દેવોના મન ભાવી
બ્રહ્મા વિષ્ણુ મહેશ ઉભા સાથમાં ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં
બ્રહ્મા વિષ્ણુ મહેશ ઉભા સાથમાં ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં
આવ્યા પાર્વતી માતા મનમાં હરખન માતા
આવ્યા પાર્વતી માતા મનમાં હરખન માતા
શારદા માતા છે એક, એના નામ છે અનેક.
શારદા માતા છે એક, એના નામ છે અનેક.
જેવા જેવા ધર્યા રૂપ, તેવા તેવા ધર્યા નામ.
જેવા જેવા ધર્યા રૂપ, તેવા તેવા ધર્યા નામ.
માનો જયકાર બોલાય છે ત્રણેય લોકમાં. ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં. ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં.
માનો જયકાર બોલાય છે ત્રણેય લોકમાં. ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોકમાં. ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોકમાં.
જે કોઈ પ્રેમે ગરબો ગાય, તેના સર્વો દુઃખો જાય.
જે કોઈ પ્રેમે ગરબો ગાય, તેના સર્વો દુઃખો જાય.
તેને પરવી મરે છે ત્રણેય લોકમાં. ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં. ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં.
તેને પરવી મરે છે ત્રણેય લોકમાં. ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોકમાં. ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોકમાં.
આશા પૂરી ગરબો ગાય, હયે હર ખનમાય. જગમગ જ્યોતિ જલે છે માના ચોખમાં. ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં. ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં.
આશા પૂરી ગરબો ગાય, હરે હર કનમાય. જગમગ જ્યોતિ જલે છે માના ચોકમાં. ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોકમાં. ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોકમાં.
જે કોઈ પ્રેમે ગરબો ગાય, તેના સર્વો દુઃખો જાય.
જે કોઈ પ્રેમે ગરબો ગાય, તેના સર્વો દુઃખો જાય.
તેને પરવી મરે છે ત્રણેય લોકમાં. ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં. ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં.
તેને પરવી મરે છે ત્રણેય લોકમાં. ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોકમાં. ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોકમાં.
ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં.
ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોકમાં.
ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં.
ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોકમાં.
ખેલ ખેલ રે ભવાની માના ચોખમાં.
ઓમ શ્રી રામ કૃષ્ણ ભગવાન કી જય.
Om Namo Narayanaya, revered Ishta Pranam Mataji, dear sisters and brothers. My talk for this morning is Mayavati Ashram. 50 miles east of Almora, in the Himalayas, close to the border with Nepal, there is an ashram. It is a place of great beauty and tranquility. The hills on which it is situated are densely forested with pines, oaks and cedars. In the spring, the gardens flower abundantly. Roses, dahlias, magnolias, just to name a few. In winter, when all nature seems to sleep under a blanket of snow, the silence is bewitching. To the northwest stretch the snow-clad Himalayas. This is Mayavati. The ashram was the dream of Swami Vivekananda. I quote, "There in the mountains where it is silent, where the higher truths of religion may be realized, where the mind can think clearly and the nerves are settled, far away from the noise of city life, there on a whole hill about, say, 6,000 feet high, with a grand view of the eternal snows, with springs and a tiny lake, cedars, the Himalayan cedar forest, and flowers, flowers everywhere. The Mayavati Ashram is committed to Advaita Vedanta, non-dualism, This was Swamiji's wish, a place where there would be no outward signs of religious practice. There are no religious pictures, no murtis, no rituals are practiced, no arti. There is no shrine. The sadhana of the ashramites was to be japa, meditation, personal and group study of the scriptures, and selfless work, pure interior search for the truth eternal. I quote, Advaita Vedanta, that which is practiced at Mayavati, declares that the manifold universe of name and form is a misreading of the one ultimate reality. Since this reality is omnipresent, it must be within every creature and object. Man, therefore, is essentially divine. Direct superconscious experience of his identity with Atman Brahman releases man from all worldly bondage he has superimposed on his true nature, granting him spiritual perfection and eternal peace. An Advaita ashram is unfamiliar to us, and one might wonder about the atmosphere in an ashram where there is no shrine and no outward signs of religious practice. But many illustrious monks have led austere, contemplative lives at Mayavati, and no doubt the spirit in which work is performed and meditation practiced has borne fruit. In the early days, the journey to Mayavati was long and arduous. When the weary travellers finally arrived, they were sometimes visibly moved by the holy atmosphere. On the subject of there being no shrine, a monk recalls the visit of a lady to the Advaita Ashram in Kolkata. One day, a lady devotee with a packet of sandesh in her hand came to Advaita Ashrama, bowed down to me and wanted to have that sandesh offered in the shrine. "Oh no, we don't have any shrine. You may offer it to me if you want," I said. "Is this not a branch of the Ramakrishna order?" she quipped. "Oh yes, it is," I replied. "Then why don't you have a shrine?" I had to explain to her why Swami Vivekananda wanted to have Advaita Ashrama take the non-dualistic approach to the ultimate reality, and how Holy Mother also supported it. After hearing all my explanations about the history of Advaita Ashrama, she exclaimed with a sigh, "But there's no shrine." The story of the birth of Mayavati Ashrama is also the story of a remarkable English couple, devotees of Swami Vivekananda. Captain John Seviers, a non-commissioned officer in the British Army, and his wife, Mrs. Charlotte Seviers. With remarkable insight, Swamiji has described the character of the English people, and I quote, "The bold, brave and steady Englishman. If he has once an idea put into his brain, it never comes out, and the immense practicality and energy of the race makes it sprout up and immediately bear fruit. There is less of imagination, but more of work, and who knows the wellspring, the mainspring of the English heart. Their education is to hide their feelings and never show them. From their childhood they have been educated up to that. If you once know how to reach that heart, he will open it to you. He is your friend forever. He is your servant." Mr. and Mrs. Seviers bore testimony to this insight. In one of the early meetings between Swami Vivekananda and Mrs. Seviers, Swamiji had asked her, "Don't you feel like coming to India? If you do come, I will give you the very best of all that I have experienced." The Seviers did go to India and accompanied Swamiji on his return after his triumphant stay in the West. They travelled with him in India and saw the joyous and enthusiastic reception he received from his countrymen. But Swamiji was anxious to find a property for an ashram in the Himalayas, and the Seviers and Swami Swarupananda began their search. After an extensive and diligent search in the interior of the Almora district, they came upon the beautiful Mayavati estate. It was decided at once that this was the place, and Mr. and Mrs. Seviers purchased the property. It opened on the 19th of March 1899, the day of the public celebration of Sri Ramakrishna's birthday. Mr. and Mrs. Seviers and Swami Swarupananda were charged with the task of establishing this Advaita Ashram. They were living in a wild mountainous region at an altitude of 6,500 feet. There was much work to be done, restoring and altering buildings, clearing part of the forest, building roads. Access to the place was difficult. There was only a bridle path. Even when the ashrama was established, wild animals were a problem. Once a huge tiger was found roaming in the compound. The work got done and the place grew. So did the spirit of contemplation and holiness. Mr. Seviers, who everyone called Pitaji, lived the life of an austere monk. He dressed in a dhoti draped in the South Indian manner. He was a man who had been born into wealth and luxury, and yet, after meeting Swami Vivekananda, embraced a life of austerity and poverty, accepting the Indian mode of thought and way of life. Mr. Seviers was the estate manager. Mrs. Seviers lived a life of consecration and service. She wrote articles for Prabhupada Bharata, the journal of the Ramakrishna Mission, looked after the gardens and orchards, and kept everything spotlessly clean. She was an intelligent woman with a kind and loving nature, and possessed an innate grace. In those early days, everything except the wheat and vegetables grown in the garden had to be brought in. Pins, pencils, typewriter ribbons, socks, provisions, rice, condiments. During the winter, one of the Swamis would travel to Lucknow and spend a month there making these purchases, which had to last for the year. The pioneer's lot is not easy. The first thing that was done in 1899 was to move the printing and publishing of Prabhupada Bharata, the journal of the Ramakrishna order, to Mayavati. In those days, the journal was printed using a hand press. When Swami Virajananda was living at Mayavati, it was decided to publish the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, and the first 2 volumes were printed with this hand press. Today, all the printing is done at the Advaita Ashram in Kolkata. The life of Swami Vivekananda by his Eastern and Western disciples was also begun, and so the enormous task of preparing and editing the writings and speeches began. Mrs. Seviers was involved in this and did a lot of the proofreading. On occasion, there arose differences of opinion regarding the English used in the works of Swami Vivekananda. Swami Virajananda was concerned with the idea behind Swamiji's words, even though the language might not be ideal. I quote, "This was not acceptable to Mrs. Seviers, who herself wrote in a delightful style. She would therefore become quite annoyed and emphatically exclaim, 'To bring forth from Swamiji's mouth such English which people will criticize is certainly not proper.' At times the disagreement between them became quite heated, yet at the root of the matter was a deep love for Swamiji." End of quote. Reading the reminiscences of monks who lived and worked at Mayavati, one gets the impression that it is a very special place. To be posted to Mayavati was joyful news. Some of the presidents of the ashram introduced a touch of magic and delight into the activities. 2 incidents appealed to me. I quote, "One morning in 1943 at 5:30 a.m., a large party set out to watch the sunrise from Maneshwar Monk Mount. The first rays of the rising sun were just playing on the far eastern horizon, gradually changing the silver lining of the eternal snow into red. Then the first rays of the sun, glowing on the tips of the snow peaks, silenced everyone. One after another, the eternal snow peaks were shining gold and diamond-like. End of quote. Another event that I would love to have shared in was a moonlight picnic on a peak near Shetty Field. It was November 1933 and the group took a tabla and 2 cymbals along. The weather was fine and the snow-covered mountains shone in the moonlight. The group made music in the mountains, singing devotional songs, creating a wonderful atmosphere up there on that mountain peak. They returned to the ashram at 9:45. Today, more than 100 years later, the Mayavati Ashrama continues to be a source of blessing to this world. Its publications carry the message of Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda to many homes. Quote, "The Mayavati Hospital, which serves God in human beings day and night, is a living example of service as a form of spirituality. Its guest house helps world-weary seekers enjoy the charm of spiritual contemplation in the silence and solitude of Mayavati." End of quote. Much has changed on the outside. Now there's electricity, generators, computers, a road and a vehicle. But some things haven't changed. The flowers, the trees and the winter snows are still just as beautiful, and so are the spiritual ideals that keep Mayavati alive. Hari Om Tat Sat.
बोलो बोलो सब मिल बोलो ओम नमः शिवाय। बोलो बोलो सब मिल बोलो ओम नमः शिवाय। 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 बोलो बोलो सब मिल बोलो ओम नमः शिवाय। बोलो बोलो सब मिल बोलो ओम नमः शिवाय। झूठ जटा में गंगा धारी, झूठ जटा में गंगा धारी, त्रिशूल धारी डमरू बजा, त्रिशूल धारी डमरू बजा। डम 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 डमरू बजा, डम 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 डमरू बजा। गूंज गाओ नमः शिवाय, गूंज गाओ नमः शिवाय। ओम नमः शिवाय। बोलो ओम नमः शिवाय। ओम नमः शिवाय। ओम नमः शिवाय। हर ओम नमः शिवाय। हर ओम नमः शिवाय। हर ओम नमः शिवाय। हर ओम नमः शिवाय। बोलो बोलो सब मिल बोलो ओम नमः शिवाय। बोलो बोलो सब मिल बोलो ओम नमः शिवाय। 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 बोलो बोलो सब मिल बोलो ओम नमः शिवाय। बोलो बोलो सब मिल बोलो ओम नमः शिवाय। झूठ जटा में गंगा धारी, झूठ जटा में गंगा धारी, त्रिशूल धारी डमरू बजा, त्रिशूल धारी डमरू बजा। डम 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 डमरू बजा, डम 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 डमरू बजा। गूंज गाओ नमः शिवाय, गूंज गाओ नमः शिवाय। ओम नमः शिवाय। बोलो ओम नमः शिवाय। सब मिल बोलो ओम नमः शिवाय। बोलो बोलो सब मिल बोलो ओम नमः शिवाय। ओम श्री राम कृष्ण भगवान की जय। अपने को आप भूल के हैरान हो गया, माया के जाल में फंसा वीरान हो गया। अपने को आप भूल के हैरान हो गया, माया के जाल में फंसा वीरान हो गया। जड़ देह को अपना स्वरूप मान मन लिया, दिन रात खाना पान काम काज दिल दिया। जड़ देह को अपना स्वरूप मान मन लिया, दिन रात खाना पान काम काज दिल दिया। पानी में मिल के दूध एक जान हो गया, पानी में मिल के दूध एक जान हो गया। अपने को आप भूल के हैरान हो गया, माया के जाल में फंसा वीरान हो गया। अपने को आप भूल के हैरान हो गया, विषयों को देख देख के लालच में आ रहा। दीपक में जो पतंग जाय के समा रहा, विषयों को देख देख के लालच में आ रहा। दीपक में जो पतंग जाय के समा रहा, बिना विचार के सदा नादान हो गया। बिना विचार के सदा नादान हो गया। अपने को आप भूल के हैरान हो गया, माया के जाल में फंसा वीरान हो गया। अपने को आप भूल के हैरान हो गया। कर पुण्य पाप स्वर्ग नरक भोगता फिरे, तृष्णा की डोर से बंधा सदा जन्म धरे। कर पुण्य पाप स्वर्ग नरक भोगता फिरे, तृष्णा की डोर से बंधा सदा जन्म धरे। पी कर के मोह के सुरा, पी कर के मोह के सुरा बेभान हो गया। अपने को आप भूल के हैरान हो गया, माया के जाल में फंसा वीरान हो गया। अपने को आप भूल के हैरान हो गया। सत्संग में जाकर सदा दिल में विचार ले, बदन में अपने आप रूप को निहार ले। सत्संग में जाकर सदा दिल में विचार ले, बदन में अपने आप रूप को निहार ले। ब्रह्मानंद मिले मोक्ष जब ज्ञान हो गया, ब्रह्मानंद मिले मोक्ष जब ज्ञान हो गया। अपने को आप भूल के हैरान हो गया, माया के जाल में फंसा वीरान हो गया। अपने को आप भूल के हैरान हो गया, अपने को आप भूल के हैरान हो गया। ओम श्री राम कृष्ण भगवान की जय।
Om Namo Narayana, dear sisters and brothers. Let us sit calmly and feel the presence of God in our hearts. Swami Vivekananda is the embodiment of compassion. He lived to do good to the world and uplift suffering humanity. I bow to Vivekananda, the ever pure one, who is the teacher supreme, the protector of the universe, and the foremost amongst the monks who incarnated on earth for the redemption of humankind. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरि ॐ तत्सत् जय श्री गुरु महाराज की जय महामाय की जय स्वामी जी महाराज की जय गंगा मात की जय महावीर स्वामी जी की जय सर्व ऋषि मुनियों की जय पार्वती पतये हर हर महादेव की जय ॐ नमो नारायणाय